Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beautiful country that you're in. You're watching Rebel Roundup, our daily news and opinion show. It's a live stream, so you'll get the news of the day, unscripted as we see it. You'll get our honest opinions on things that are happening in this country and around the world. I'm your regular host, Sheila Gunn Reid, and I'm joined by my co host today, who is Alexa Lavoie, who happens to be, although from Quebec, she's in the Toronto studio today. Alexa, how's it going?
I'm good. On regular guest. That's me.
No. It's normally just me and whoever can fit me in. So
I try to
I'm glad it
escape
was you.
sometime, Quebec. I think
I
it,
know.
it give me a break.
I can't believe you escaped Quebec and end up in Toronto and you think that's a break. Like I have a
Kinda.
unique perspective out here in the West where I just look at, I don't know, the rest of the country and wonder what the heck they're doing and why they vote the way that they do. But I should tell everybody what we're doing today because it's a very busy show and we can't go too long because the National Citizens Inquiry is in Edmonton today. And so as soon as the show is done, that's where I'm headed to sit in on that, see the hearings. Maybe I'll cut some clips. So see if there's any interesting testifiers before the inquiry that I can talk to and let you know about. So that's what I'm doing next. So that's why the show, normally it runs long. Hopefully it won't go as long today, not because I want to deny you our opinions, but because I've got a really tight timeline today for myself. So if you are watching us on Rumble, that's a great free speech platform. We're so glad that you're there. They have supported Rebel News when everybody else made their best efforts to silence and censor us. So on Rumble, you can support the work that we do out of the goodness of your heart, unlike what Justin Trudeau makes you do with the mainstream media, by leaving us their paid chat. It's called a Rumble Rant. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we are making it mandatory. We will read it on air, do our best to respond. If it's under the $5 US cutoff, well, we so appreciate you, but I cannot make any promises that I will get to your comment. I will, however, do my best. The same rules apply on YouTube. We are newly remonetized over there. I'm not optimistic that that's going to last very long because YouTube is pretty particular about the things that you can say over there, including some things that are 100% completely truthful. But on YouTube, you can leave us a super chat, or if you're watching afterwards, you can leave a paid chat that's called a super thanks. So those are the rules. Get chatting. If you'd like to have your say, leave us a paid chat and we'll do our best to address it on air. Now let's get into what are we on? Day 4 of Tariff Mania, I think is what it is. Last night, Alberta's government responded to the tariffs. Danielle Smith, who had sort of forged another way, it appears to be somewhat falling in line behind Doug Ford, of all people, on certain issues. I'm so sick of using booze as some sort of virtue signaling, but we'll get to that in a second. Trudeau says, in the midst of this, I think we should give some context. In the midst of all of this, the Liberals, and what I find so distasteful about, regardless of what Trump is doing to Canada or promising to do to Canada, in the middle of this, Parliament should be working. This is if you listen to the left, and I think everybody, this is a national crisis right now. Our economy is set to be absolutely crushed. But Parliament has been prorogued. Why? Because we need to give the Liberals time to increase their electoral chances against the Conservatives by replacing their deeply unpopular leader, Justin Trudeau. So just be aware, if you are considering, or if somebody you know is considering casting a vote for a rebranded Liberal Party under Mark Carney, just know that they were willing to nuke, best estimates, 1 million Canadian jobs to hang on to power. And if that person in your family thinks they should be rewarded for that, potentially they need their head examined. But Trudeau, he's emotional, which is not unusual for him. But he says he vows not to be a caretaker prime minister, and he gets emotional at one of his last events. Now, here's why I think he's getting emotional, is because he doesn't get to go on the long goodbye tour anymore. Like, where's he been the last month while the Trump tariffs have been delayed, while we're supposed to be doing something to fix the issues the Americans have with us? Instead, he's been on some sort of international farewell tour.
Literally throwing our money everywhere that he can.
Yeah.
If it's not for Ukraine, it was for other kind of organization, traveling on taxpayer dimes, and he just held even a little bit everywhere. I just don't understand that. How a lame duck prime minister can continue to do those outrageous announcements.
Yeah, I mean, last week he was appointing parliamentary secretaries, which led me to believe that the Liberals have a plan to delay the next election. Like, why would you be appointing parliamentary secretaries for a government that is, if the NDP do what they're supposed to do, and I don't think that they're gonna, and we'll get to that in a little bit, because I think we have Elizabeth May hinting at what I believe has gone on behind the scenes for a very long time. If he's appointing parliamentary secretaries, they don't think they're going to election, and they know something we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already heard Karina Gould, who's also running to replace Justin Trudeau as an also ran, as they call them. She said, this is an emergency. We could delay the election as much as in a year after the October mandatory election call, because we're in an emergency. And if it's, again, if we're in such an emergency, why aren't you people working?
The thing is, they keep saying that it's an emergency, but Tariff, if they are there, they are going to stay, and they are going to be there for a long time. We already saw this during the Great Depression. I don't know if you remember. I wasn't born, obviously, but the story
David might have been.
the story is repeating itself, and I think. And I was pretty surprised to see the PQ leader, that is the separatists in Quebec, that was the only one to keep a cold head and saying, we must not act on an emergency. We should reflect on the consequences of our act. And it was also speaking about that the counter tariff is not, it's not something that we should go ahead with. We should maybe look into other option, because, and I just interviewed recently an economist, and it's exactly what he was saying. Counter tariff will only hurt Canadians. And what it was explaining is just going full free trade. Open the free
Yes.
trade, remove the barrier, remove all the regulation that actually stop us to have a better competitivity. And yeah, I was really surprised that the separatist was actually the only one who actually had another kind of narrative about it.
We've got this clip. Thanks for finding this, Olivia and Efron, behind the scenes. Elizabeth May, leader of the fringe Green Party, an absolute lunatic. She is a crazy lady. I don't know why she is any like remotely relevant in this country, except insofar as she serves as what's called the stalking horse for the Liberals. And she's just crazy enough to actually say what they're doing behind the scenes. And I think she is right here. She confirms there are discussions with the Liberals and the NDPs to join forces to prevent a single party from forming a majority. So this is what I have, when I saw those appointments of those parliamentary secretaries last week by Justin Trudeau, I thought, he knows something we don't. And once again, the NDP are just going to lie to Canadians while continuing to prop up the Liberals so that Canadians can't have the election they want and they deserve. So let's show this clip from Elizabeth May.
We have been in conversation with different levels of insiders within the Liberal Party, the New Democratic Party. We've talked to colleagues in Parliament. What kind of interest would there be in listening to the voices of Canadians, like the grassroots group that has sprung up of Cooperate for Canada, who want to see parties sit down and talk to each other about how we can potentially cooperate across this country and be able to have that common resolve that survives an election, be able to envision a parliament that functions well together, taking on the threats that Canada faces. To do that, we wanted to make this press conference today a public commitment to being willing to talk to other parties, to talk about what it takes in a perverse first past the post voting system to remind Canadians that we don't elect a prime minister in this country. We elect a parliament. There are currently 5 parties in the House of Commons. And if we were to find a way to cooperate, we could ensure at least that neither one of the big parties gets a false majority with 100% of the power with less than 50% of public support. There are many examples in past history of Canada, but the main thing is we won't get cooperation if we don't even sit down to talk about it.
Okay, so she's trying to rig the parliamentary system against the people right now. And what a despicable thing, because Canadians want change. Give us the opportunity to have our say. And instead she's saying, when you do get your say, we're going to make sure we collude to make sure that the outcome is what we want. And she talks about this little group called Cooperate for Canada. If I had to guess, this is just a rebrand of what happened to Stephen Harper. There was a thing like this. It was called Vote Together. And you could, if you were on the progressive side and you didn't actually care about your values, you just wanted to keep the conservatives out, which is what I feel like this is. You know, like if you felt like you had to vote with your heart, you would vote for the candidate that represented you. Instead, they are strategically voting. And so Cooperate for Canada, you can search by your riding. They just did it for the Ontario election. Didn't work all that well for them. But you could go and see, okay, who's going to win there? Is it the Liberal or the NDP candidate? Who do we throw our support behind? Who, if we vote together, cooperate, to block the Conservative Party.
Wow.
So you can shift, you can look in your riding and see, okay, so should we shift all the votes toward the NDP or should we shift all the votes towards the Liberals? Which shows you that they are just, you know, like if that's the case, then one of those parties shouldn't exist, right? Because they just serve as an arm of the other party. But they did this to Stephen Harper to some success. Obviously, it's part and parcel of why we have Justin Trudeau right now. They did this in key ridings to coalesce, I think is the right word, the progressive vote against the Conservatives. And then it was called Vote Together. Now it's called Cooperate for Canada.
This is it's not exactly the same thing, but that remember me a little bit how the system in France is working. So after the first round, at the second round, people were able to counter the party that has the biggest chance to win. That at that time was the Rassemblement National, but the leftists and the far left were able to counter it because they knew what was the result at the first turn. And that make me remember how strategic it is. And it's not really representing the real vote behind. It's just strategic voting.
Yeah, it's not that anybody is actually liberal or NDP or Green anymore. They're just anti-conservative,
Exactly.
and they don't even know why. They cannot articulate it, because if they think this country is working with those people in charge, what fantasy land are they living in? Taxes are up, poverty is up, cost of housing is up, cost of food is up, wait times are up in hospitals. Everything is bad. Crime is up, drugs are up. They've had a decade to make some improvement somewhere. We've seen actual negative outcomes on all of those fronts.
And you know what? Why do we want to do that for countering the conservative? Because what we are seeing right now is that conservative is the party that is resonating the most in Canada. And it's
Right.
why we are seeing now the candidate for the Liberal Party taking back everything that what the conservative have
Right.
been saying for a while.
Right. All of a sudden, it's not racist to reconsider your immigration targets. All of a sudden, you're not a climate murderer if you want to stop the carbon tax. So they don't actually believe in anything. They only believe in power. They don't care what it does to you. And you're seeing this right now with the tariff war that they have just allowed to just go on while they run a leadership race. They don't care about, and they don't care about you.
Mhm.
They only care about hanging on to power. They don't even have any values. I don't even think they're liberals or progressives. They just want power at all costs, which is the last kind of person you want in parliament. We've got some breaking news right now. I know my brother-in-law texts me about this about twice a week. Sheila, did you hear anything about the Justice Centre's challenge of the prorogation of Parliament? We just heard right now. Now, I don't think we have a judgment yet, but the federal court, this is from the Justice Center, and this is from 16 minutes ago. And Efron or Olivia, if something changes here, please let me know. Breaking news today, the federal court will issue a decision on the constitutional challenge to the Prime Minister's advice to prorogue Parliament. Stay tuned for a link to the decision and our analysis of it. So the only time that they could find that this ever happened was in the UK, and it was during they had to, it had to do with Brexit.
Mhm.
And Parliament was prorogued, and they needed to deal with Brexit, and the time was running out. And the court said, this is an existential crisis, and you guys need to get back to work. And I would argue that what we're seeing right now is an existential crisis, and these people have to get back to work. And if they felt any responsibility to Canadians or Canada, they would have done that on their own. And the fact that somebody had to bring a court challenge to try to get them to do it speaks to the quality of people we have running this country.
And proroguing the parliament speaks how our leader that is in place right now is incompetent.
Yes, completely. I mean, and Mark Carney, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I mean, he's been the Trudeau whisperer for at least the last 5 years. He was in there like a dirty shirt advising everybody during the public order emergency, not the commission, but the call of the public order emergency, using the Emergencies Act to freeze bank accounts and take away people's civil liberties. So you're just going to get a more boring version of Justin Trudeau. And the only thing Justin Trudeau ever offered me was how amusing I found his stupidity. And this guy will just be boring. We've got a video. Prime Minister Trudeau tells reporters that he reiterated to President Trump yesterday, oh, good news, they finally talked, that Canada's border is secure and less than 1% of fentanyl enters the U.S. through Canada. How much fentanyl should the Americans tolerate, I guess, is the question. Let's watch this clip.
I want to address what I know is top of mind for all Canadians. Yesterday, I spoke with President Trump, and I reiterated the facts. Our border is secure, and less than 1% of the illegal fentanyl entering the United States comes from Canada. Even so, we took action with our $1.3 billion plan to further strengthen our border. I also stressed that the tariffs the U.S. administration chose to impose will hurt American workers and businesses, and that, as our shared history has proven, we should work together instead to tackle today's challenges rather than fighting one another. Canada's ministers, officials, and I will continue to engage with our American counterparts. Our goal remains to get these tariffs, all tariffs, removed. In the meantime, we'll be taking action to support Canadians through the tough times ahead. You can count on leadership right across the country, municipalities, provinces, and indeed, your federal government. But mostly, you can continue to count on each other. Canadians have been there for each other, for small businesses, for local producers, for friends. Canadians will pull together and continue to pull together with deep, deep pride in country as all of us stand together to defend Canada.
Who is enough naive to actually believing any word that he's saying? Seriously,
Toronto.
since he's in power, the border is just broken. Like, not just for illegal immigration, for drugs, for weapon, for guns, for any kind of product that have been just dealing both sides of the border. It's because of him. He actually removed the Mexican visa, knowing
Yes.
and being brief that we might end up with cartel. And ta-da! We have cartel at our border.
Not only that, this guy's lying through his teeth. Okay, so they announced a $1.3 billion increase in border security, which is actually not all that much money in the grand scheme of things, back in December. We're in March now, and guess what? Prorogation means all legislative activity is suspended until March 24th. That includes the proposed new spending, like the $1.3 billion in the federal government's border security plan. So he can talk about his border security, but he also put that on the shelf so that they could get Mark Carney in place. So all of this, 3 months now, 3 full months, none of that money has been spent. Nothing has happened with this plan because he prorogued Parliament to save his party. He burned down the country to warm his party's electoral chances. Think about how despicable that is. I cannot believe my fellow Canadians would even consider casting a vote for these absolute power-mad lunatics. Like, they have destroyed our country. They have destroyed our relationship with the Americans. They are lying to you through their teeth. I can't believe Canadians would reward that. I don't want to believe I live in a country where Canadians would reward that.
And for the Canadian who say, oh, but it will be replaced by Mark Carney, it's the same cabinet behind Mark Carney. So it's the same new face.
Freeland is going to be his finance minister. We know that. We know that. Like, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Nothing will change. By the way, drugs aren't a problem, according to Justin Trudeau. Just 1%. Here's this morning. If you do a scan of the news outside of the national level, you'll find stuff like this. Cops accidentally found $200,000 worth of meth pills just in the bushes in New Brunswick. They were found during an unrelated search for something else. They just found all these pills in the bush. So again, just 1%? How do we get that number when we have cops just stumbling across pills in the bush? It's way higher, and the Americans know it.
Because how can you put a percentage on something that you didn't even caught?
Exactly. They're not searching shipping containers. The gangs have infiltrated the port system. The provinces are taking on these duties on their own because the federal government has failed. Illegal migrants are freezing on their way into Canada, as is the case in southern Manitoba. So there's the problem. And I'm tired of the government gaslighting us into saying we've got it all under control. We know it's not under control. We can tell in our communities that we are infested by drugs and social decay. And if Trump's got a problem with fentanyl, by the way, he should be speaking directly to David Eby. I don't know why Alberta has to pay for the things that David Eby's doing. David Eby's giving out fentanyl, giving out safe supply. That safe supply is ending up in Alberta, killing our people. No doubt it's ending up on the streets of Seattle, killing people there too. David Eby's got a lot to answer for. And I think he is really, besides Justin Trudeau and the 9 years of running down Donald Trump as some sort of racist, fascist, anti-woman Nazi, David Eby should hold a lot of blame for what's happening in Canada right now. I mean, that province seems to be infested with gangs. Every time you turn around, they're busting a super lab there.
Like, this is a thing. If Mexico got a new deal, a new agreement that their tariff is lifted, and this is until April 2nd.
Yes.
Why then Canada cannot have?
Well, I'll tell you why. He says it right in this, if you read between the lines.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Alexa. He said, I have agreed that Mexico will not be required to pay tariffs on anything that falls under the USMCA agreement. This agreement is until April 2nd. I did this as an accommodation. Here's where we get why this is why Canada's not getting it. Out of respect for President Sheinbaum. Our relationship has been a very good one, and we are working hard together on the border, both in terms of stopping illegal aliens from entering the United States and likewise stopping fentanyl. Thank you, President Sheinbaum, for your hard work. He respects her. She has been willing to work with him. She has not run her mouth about him for 9 years, and she can show proof of work. We have a border czar. I forget his name. That tells you how much work he's been doing. What work has he been doing? Exactly. Even if he is working hard, he needs to show Canadians, but show the Americans too. We've got none of that. President Trump does not respect Justin Trudeau, does not respect Freeland, does not respect Carney, and that's why we're not getting a carve out. I remember when I said Danielle Smith is going to escape the worst of this because Trump likes her. And that has remained true. Trump doesn't like Trudeau. That's what it comes down to. And here we are.
Yeah, but Canada is not transparent anyway for anything. Same like, I don't know if you remember, but when they actually caught the alleged terrorist that was going to do a terrorist act in US, if you were able to get the ends on the US release and the RCMP released, the US release has 2 pages of information. RCMP, half a page.
Yeah, it's true. That's completely true. Let's go on to Donald Trump, I think, properly assessing the truth here. This is, I saw it as an X post, but he probably, well, it's Trump. He definitely put it on Truth Social. Believe it or not, despite the terrible job he's done for Canada, I think that Justin Trudeau is using the tariff problem, which he largely caused, in order to run a game for Prime Minister. So much fun to watch. You know what? I don't know if Justin Trudeau is going to run. Actually, I know he's not going to run again. But what's the difference when you elect Mark Carney. And I think it's true. If you take out the fine details there and look at the macro issue, yes, the Liberals are using the tariff issue to hang on to power, to make sure Mark Carney gets elected to be the prime minister of this country if and when they ever allow us to vote. And that's because the Liberals cannot campaign against Pierre Poilievre on their own record, so they have to campaign against Trump. I wish Trump were more aware of how much he's helping the Liberals in all of this, though.
But how much certification that we have that Justin Trudeau will not have any influence behind Mark Carney?
Oh, for sure. I think here's the thing. I don't think we need to know if Justin Trudeau is influencing Mark Carney behind the scenes, because Mark Carney was the guy influencing Justin Trudeau. And who influences Mark Carney? The United Nations and the World Economic Forum. So I guess they're just cutting out the middleman. They don't need the guy to whisper in Justin Trudeau's ear. They'll just have the guy who did the whispering do the talking this time.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, it's we know everything on Sunday. I think it's Sunday.
Yes, it is Sunday, and it's mostly online. I guess it's in Ottawa somewhere. If it's darn near impossible to find out where it is if you look on the Liberal Party's website, and I think there's a reason for that.
And when you're live like that, if you have any tip, reach out to us.
Yeah, let us know. We've got a video from Trudeau who says his government is working every day to get the U.S. tariffs dropped. No, Justin, you're not working. That's the problem I have in all of this. You prorogued Parliament. Nobody is working. Nobody.
Do you think they can be dropped? And then also when it comes to this announcement today, how important is it to you that these bigger programs that you've designed stay in place after you leave?
First of all, our priority is to continue to work very, very hard every day to get these tariffs to be dropped. There should be no tariffs between Canada and the United States, not just because we have a free trade agreement that says there should be no tariffs between us, but because it is good for the Canadian economy and the American economy. It is good for Americans and Canadians for us to be working together on big things, particularly in an uncertain world. So the goal is get these tariffs off. Now, the Americans are continuing to look at different steps, including the early April marker of larger commercial and trade reflections, not just with Canada, but with the world. And that is very much something that we are working towards as well. But our focus is on ending this trade war. And until we do, we will continue to stay strong for Canadians, and Canadians will continue to stay strong with each other.
He should reimburse his salary since he prorogued Parliament.
Yeah, he says we're working very hard, and we're doing everything we can, except actually going into work. They're not going to work. Again, this is the stuff that I can't even believe Canadians are falling for, but I guess some of them are. They are falling for the fact that they think the Liberals are working hard on this. They are falling for the fact that the Liberals say that they're working with the Americans. They're not. They're being nothing but antagonistic. And they're falling for the fact that, that Canada's not a drug and gang problem. We definitely are. And don't get me started on the exportation of terrorism into the northern states.
What do you think of that? The private, like the photographer of Justin Trudeau has to release picture of him while he wasn't on the phone with the President Donald Trump to really show that was credible.
Yeah. You just like, Justin, pick up the phone. We need to stage a photo. We've got a video from Justin Trudeau. What is this? Good to have you back. I didn't watch this, so we're getting oh goodness. Barf. Now apparently, again, back with the booze patriotism. I can't stand it so much. So remember no, you're younger than me. I'm old. I was barely able to drink when these commercials came out. I think I was 21. So I guess I could vote or I could drink in the United States. But Joe Canada, he was that like I am Canadian for a Canadian beer, like Canadian beer. He's back with an update to his I am Canadian rant. And it was like this it was a marketing thing for beer. Like it was, whatever. But this is apparently what constitutes patriotism as far as the low information voters of this country are concerned. Justin Trudeau is tweeting it now saying it's good to have you back. So let's watch it. Let me know in the comments, are you moved by the spirit of Canadianism when you watch a beer marketing commercial? Tariff wars are over.
Hey, I know it's in our nature to cut a guy some slack, give him the benefit of the doubt, like maybe he was confused or just joking or just maybe really needed a double-double. But this isn't that guy. These aren't those people, and those are not the Rockies. They make a lot of mistakes. They mistake our modesty for meekness, our kindness for consent, our nation for another star on their flag, and our love of a hot, cheesy poutine with their love of a hot, cheesy Putin. They think they can bully us, threaten us, and push us around, but they do not know us. That artificially drawn line they keep talking about, not artificial, and it's not on a map. It's right here. This is the land that Terry ran, the land that Gord sang about. This is the birthplace of peanut butter and ketchup chips and yoga pants. It is the land of universal health care and the bench clearing for all, of innovation and optimism and getting her done. This is the land of the peacekeeper and the Shawinigan handshake. Are we perfect? No, but we are not the 51st anything. We are the first to unite in a crisis, the first to build bridges, not walls, and the first to stand on guard for thee. My name is Jeff, and we are Canadian. Thank you.
Okay, that was pathetic. Very little in there about the West, by the way, except to point out that that was the Matterhorn in that photo and not the Canadian Rockies. I'm reliably informed by the hysterical lunatics in Ottawa that you cannot politicize Terry Fox, right? Like you can't even involve him in anything that you do unless it's, of course, Pride. And then you can put a rainbow flag on him. I guess that's acceptable. But they politicized Terry Fox in there. They used universal health care, which would sooner kill you than treat you these days.
That's what I was thinking.
And also mentioned yoga pants, as if the guy who founded Lululemon isn't a conservative or something. Like, he was the guy who put up the anti-NDP signs at the end of his driveway during the BC elections. And by the way, Lululemon does brisk business in the United States. Talk about co-opting our symbols for your own nonsense. And again, the Americans love Putin. Putin will be brought to bear, by the way, by Trump. He invaded the Crimea under Obama. He started a war with Ukraine under Biden. The only time he will be brought under control and the only time he behaved himself in recent years, in the last decade, was when there was a Trump in office. If there will be peace struck, it will be because Trump pushed for it and nobody else. So ridiculous. These people are absolutely ridiculous. I could do something similar about the Liberal Party, and I would point to their love of China and Xi Jinping.
Not just that. We can actually do this same video, but with everything that is wrong in this country too, under the Liberals.
Alexa, let's do that. We
like,
should.
seriously.
This is the
when
David
we
Menzies
beat
project.
up people in Ottawa, when we froze the bank account, when people die waiting for having a treatment, or people who are getting made because they cannot being treated properly, our veterans who are underfunded and have hard time to get any services. Let's go. Let's do it. You will see that the Liberals look like pretty bad if we are doing that same one of what happened in the last 10 years under the Liberals.
Yeah, I mean, the list would be endless. Our rant would be an hour long. Fentanyl, gangs, homelessness, veterans who have to buy their own equipment when they're deployed to Latvia. Veterans, active service members, veterans, they're getting made because they can't get stairs in their house, or at least stair lifts in their house. Grandmothers who are being told it's their civic duty to accept maid. The housing crisis, the immigration crisis, taxation, carbon taxes, farmers who are selling their land or can't give it to their kids if they own a corporation or if they've incorporated their farm because of the capital gains tax. Our list could be a lot longer than we invented ketchup chips. Whoopity-doo.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be proud of your country, you just show how much natural resources we have and underexploited.
Yes, yeah. We can't get a pipeline built. That, you know, we're being called names by our prime minister. My problem is that not that I don't love my country. My problem is I wish our politicians acted like they loved and cherished this country and the people who live inside of it, but they don't. This could be a beautiful place, a prosperous place. I mean, we have the world's third largest oil and gas reserves. What are we doing with it? We can't even get a pipeline built. We could be like Singapore. Instead, we can't even sell our natural resources to anybody but the Americans because of the holdup in Ottawa. We should do our own rant. I feel like I just did a little bit of one. Anyway.
I like a sentence that I heard recently. Passivity end up in captivity.
Yes. Yeah. Arresting journalists, banning journalists, arresting peaceful protesters, imprisoning them for 50 days, arresting pastors, throwing our service members out of the military because they didn't get an experimental drug. It's just crazy. And to say this country isn't broken, it is broken. And my problem is with the people who broke it and who have no plan to fix it. They shouldn't be given the opportunity to fix what they've done. By the way, Dan Albus, conservative MP, one I really like, he's really good on gun rights. Justin Trudeau in 2015, when he, in the summer of 2015, June 16th, 2015, says, Canadians know that Ottawa is broken. It's time for real change to do things differently. So Dan rightly points out, next time you hear a Liberal partisan calling out critiques about what is broken in this country and how to fix it, be mindful of who is the original Ottawa is broken politician.
And that same Prime Minister Trudeau, who actually already protests against prorogation of the parliament, prorogued the parliament himself.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he did. He also, I'm marching in the streets against prorogation. And then he does it to save his party. Let's do a message from a sponsor to pay the bills around here. Then we'll hit a Rebel News ad break and we'll come back into what's left. So this message is from 5G Free. I want to talk about the things that people are afraid to say out loud. I think that's the whole theme of this show, mostly. Who's in control of America's nukes? At the time, I'm sure it wasn't Biden, right? Now it's Trump, but at the time, we all should have been a little bit more prepared and scared. Meanwhile, we've got Russian ships off the coast of Florida and full-blown wars in Ukraine and Israel. The world is at its most unstable point since World War II. With nuclear weapons, the stakes are 10 times higher. How do people like you and I stay safe? Especially, we've got Liberal partisans in Canada saying we need to form a nuclear alliance with the UK and Europe. That's crazy. Every prepper needs to have RadioGuard ACE, the only FDA-approved drug to treat radioactive fallout. Only the feds had it until now. That's why Rumble partnered with 5G Free, the only company in the world that has a supply of RadioGuard ACE and the ability to prescribe it prophylactically. Get their radiation emergency kit with RadioGuard ACE, potassium iodide, Zofran, and a Geiger counter. There's simply no other tool in your arsenal to protect against a radioactive threat. Go to 5gfree.com, code STUDIO, to save 15% and get your radiation kit now. Okay, let's hit a Rebel News ad break, and I'm just going to poke on over to the JCCF's X account and see if there are any updates in the meantime.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
I've got a better idea than tariffs. What would an America First strategy for Canada-U.S. trade look like? Is there room for a Trump-style mega deal even bigger than Greenland? A dozen years ago, I wrote a best-selling book called Ethical Oil, The Case for Canada's Oil Sands, which made the liberal argument that the oil sands are the fair trade coffee of the world's oil industry. In my new book, Deal of the Century, I look at Canada-U.S. trade through an America First lens, and I come to the conclusion that far from putting tariffs on Canadian oil, Donald Trump should ink a 50-year, $13 trillion deal to buy all 170 billion barrels of Canada's oil sands, shutting out China and giving Canada the means to pay for a rebuilt military. And as for yanking Trudeau's chain, well, he'll be gone as Prime Minister in a few weeks, but I've got a better suggestion for how Trump can slap Trudeau around a bit without hurting America's economic interests. That's in the book too. Get your copy now at dealofthecenturybook.com. And trust me, Trudeau doesn't want you to see this.
All right. Let's go into press conference in Alberta yesterday. Danielle Smith announcing retaliatory, I guess. Again, it's the booze wars, as if. I realize that this is one of the things they think will hurt Americans, but it just hurts like Canadian consumers, right? Like we're such a small market for any of their products. It just all of a sudden we just don't have the booze we want. And I'm just so tired of this. I think I reached adrenal fatigue on this during the Bud Light scandal. Where I was like, I'm so sick of just booze virtue signaling. And now I just had to sit through the Molson Canadian guy telling me that the Americans are all Russian operatives. I'm just so done with this. I'm disappointed to hear Danielle Smith talk about removing American alcohol from our shelves.
Is it me or we are just looking at a bunch of alcoholic?
It's just, yeah, that's the thing. Just, I don't know. People will drink something else and that's fine. But I mean, do you think you're hurting the large American breweries? Probably not. You're just like the Canadian that wants their American whiskey isn't going to get it. So thanks for the forced patriotism. Anyway, let's look at this video. She's discussing the potential economic impact of pulling alcohol from their shelves.
There's $292 million worth of liquor products, U.S. liquor products sold in Alberta in the 23-24 fiscal year, generated $84 million of markup revenue for the province. And so if you look at that quantum here and then just imagine that we're about 12% of the population, all of the other provinces are doing the same. So I would suggest that it's probably in total somewhere between $2 and $3 billion of impact across a multitude of providers of these products. And we do know that these are the kind of things in the past that has gotten various producers to call their Congress representatives and put some pressure. And so that's part of what we're doing. What we did in identifying some of our issues in supporting, first off, the $30 billion worth of tariffs, it was identifying those products which are easily replaceable with other products so that it does not inconvenience Canadian consumers or doesn't end up pricing them out. And I would say that all of these products that AGLC produces, that there are reasonable equivalents from Canadian jurisdictions as well as other jurisdictions that honor the free trade agreements we have with them.
You know what I think what will happen for part of it? I think some people would just go to the US, buy it there, and just bring it
Yeah,
back.
bring it back. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess like $1 or $2 billion worth of economic impact will probably, of course, cause those breweries to call their congressmen. Better hope they are Republicans, so that they can get the ear of the president. But I'm against tariffs in all of their form, whether they're from the Americans or from the Canadians.
Mhm.
And I just don't support any of it. I just think it's all nonsense. And none of it had to be this way, because now American breweries are going to be losing out when the bad guy in all of this is still Justin Trudeau.
Mhm. And I don't know why we are calling it a tariff. It's actually a tax.
Yes. Yes. And
It's a
as
tax.
Franco Terrazzano points out, on April 1st, the government is hiking the feds, Justin Trudeau, hiking the carbon tax 19% and increasing alcohol taxes here on April 1st. So if they really want to, as Franco points out, help Canadians who are dealing with tariffs that are being levied against us, because quite frankly, I mean, if we cut through the baloney, it's because Donald Trump does not respect Justin Trudeau or the Liberals. The federal government should go on a massive tax cut spree for Canadians to alleviate some of the pressures here, but we know they won't. They're just continuing to add taxes on top of taxes on top of taxes and squeezing Canadians when they cannot be squeezed anymore.
And I don't know why the politicians have something with the alcohol. I don't know if you remember, but back in 2021, in Quebec, the people who were, since we are on YouTube, I cannot say it, but didn't receive what, we were not allowed to go and buy alcohol. So they actually block us to go. So it's kind of a tool that they use as I'm going to give it to you or not. It's like,
Yep.
It's not supposed to be like that. Like, we are not kids. We are supposed to be a consumer, and you're a public servant, and you should find another way than just to play with a stupidity as alcohol.
It's dumb. It's dumb. And again, they're pulling American alcohol off the shelves instead of dealing with the fentanyl issue.
And we bought it. We already bought those bottles.
I know. That's the thing. Even in Alberta, because we have like what she said is the AGLC, that's the Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis Commission, or however you say it. That's this government agency that does the bulk buying. It's the distributor, and then everything else is privatized. Yeah, they already bought it. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I can understand not buying any more of it. Hopefully that's what they intend to do. Because otherwise you've got a stranded asset there that is just sitting there, unusable.
And what they would do with it, like just putting in the back of...
Yeah, store it, I guess. Store it until the tariffs are over. They showed everybody. We've got Danielle Smith also urging the federal government not to implement an export tax or cut off energy to the U.S. So I guess Danielle Smith's solution is as close to free market-y as you can get, considering she's just saying, okay, we're not going to buy American booze through the government agency. But she's still not imposing tariffs and asking them not to impose tariffs. So let's listen to this.
What is Alberta willing to do if the federal government does put in some type of export tax or decide to cut off energy to the U.S.?
Well, an export tax would be a violation of the 1977 Pipeline Treaty. We've committed to not tax the content of energy products going down to the United States. And I would hope that the federal government would abide by Alberta's wishes not to unfairly tax our jurisdiction. I know what an export tax would mean. $150 billion worth of product taxed at 25% would generate $40 billion for Ottawa. That would then be spent on Ottawa's priorities, and I have absolutely no interest. You will notice that when Doug talked about adding a surtax, He wasn't talking about Ottawa adding an export tax that then would be collected by Ottawa to be decided where it was going to be spent by Ottawa. He's adding that tax so that he has the ability to keep those dollars in his own province to be able to defray any of the damage on his own people. So I would say it is not on. It's not been on from the beginning. And you do not demonstrate that you are a reliable supplier of energy products to our most important trading partner by acting in that kind of erratic way. So there's no circumstance under which I would support an export tax.
This is another thing about the tax. Where's the money going to be used for? And we saw Pierre Poilievre saying that the money generated by the counter tariff should be spent to have a tax cut relief of the citizen,
or just not tariff anything.
Exactly.
Because I don't trust the government to give me a tax cut, because that's like the carbon tax. Oh, we're going to collect it and then we're going to give you a rebate. How about you just don't collect it? Thank you very much. I don't trust you, because all you do is lie. We've got one, I think this is a Rumble rant. It's from Orisia, because it's $10. Seems like Canada is drowning in so many issues. I feel Trump's message is the only thing that can save us, or Canada must break up, as in divorce. I think there are a lot of people who feel that way, especially when you see Danielle Smith saying the feds want to put an export tax on our oil, which is not something within their ability to do, but it's the feds, they'll do it anyway. And they're going to keep that money. So they're going to tax our stuff going out the door to the American on our product, and then keep it in Ottawa. That kind of stuff will cause a sovereignty crisis in this
and
country.
by the way, what's going to happen with Quebec and Ontario?
Yeah, exactly. Line 5. So the feds impose an export tax on oil and gas going to the United States that they're not allowed to do. And what's Trump going to do? Do the same on line 5, which is Alberta oil and gas, but it's got to cut through Michigan, which is, what good neighbors do. But you want that tax on the way back in, you're going to get tax on tax now, because it's been taxed on the way out, and then Trump's going to stick it to you on the way back in. And so enjoy $6 a liter of fuel, Ontario and Quebec.
Thank you. I don't want that. It's already more expensive in our side. I'm pretty sure.
I don't want you to have it either. I want you to have all the Canadian oil and gas you people can handle. The Liberals just don't feel the same way. Let's go into Mark Carney getting special treatment. I'm trying to get to all the headlines before I have to run out the door. Minister Joly briefed Mark Carney on the tariffs, on private negotiations, high-level negotiations, on Trump tariffs, but not the other Liberal leadership candidates. So he's just a dude. He's not anything. He's not a sitting MP. By the way, as Michelle Rumpel-Garner points out, she said, I'm a sitting MP. I'm not getting these briefings. What the heck are you doing with this guy? What other high-level information are you giving to Mark Carney, by the way? Sources said that when a caucus member pointed out that there are 3 other candidates, Joly said she would brief them if she can. Unreal.
But it's obvious that Mark Carney is the chosen one. As seen in the report of David Menzies, he has RCMP
detail. Now that is somebody, so the public safety minister can provide security through the RCMP to anyone who is a citizen or a permanent resident if the minister designates. So the minister, which I think is McGuinty at this point, it used to be LeBlanc, I think it's McGuinty now. That person, McGuinty, is giving Mark Carney preferential treatment. And I bet you Gould is not getting that.
I'm pretty sure the other 2 doesn't have that. 3 1?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen her even have a campaign event. So I don't know. So I don't know. Speaking of Mark Carney and campaign events, here's a statement from the Independent Press Gallery. So the Independent Press Gallery, for those of you who don't know, we're all members. Some of us are more than members. It is the counterbalance to the taxpayer-funded mainstream media. To be in the Independent Press Gallery, you have to commit to not take government funding. at all. And so it helps to educate and fight for the rights of independent journalists. In the past, it has held leadership debates for the Conservative Party, which was more of a fireside chat. But regardless, I mean, it's allowed independent journalists an opportunity to ask questions of the political leaders. And anyway, this is the statement from the Independent Press Gallery yesterday. Let's read it together. The Independent Press Gallery condemns Mark Carney's exclusion of independent journalists. The Independent Press Gallery of Canada, or the IPG, strongly condemns Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney's repeated exclusion of independent journalists from his campaign events. On January 16, 2025, during Carney's campaign launch in Edmonton, several independent journalists from True North, Western Standard, and the Counter Signal were denied entry despite holding valid invitations. Notably, James Snell, an accredited member of the Alberta Legislative Press Gallery, was among those barred. The police were called to remove these journalists at the campaign's request. The troubling trend continued March 4th, 2025, where independent journalists, including those from Western Standard and Rebel News, were again denied entry. Carney is avoiding journalistic scrutiny, contradicting the principles enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Carney's refusal to engage with independent journalists contrasts sharply with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's inclusive media approach, which allows both mainstream and independent outlets to attend and question him at public events. The Independent Press Gallery calls on Mark Carney's campaign to cease these undemocratic practices immediately and to permit independent journalists to attend, report, and ask questions freely, as is their right in a true democracy. We also urge all political campaigns, regardless of party affiliation, to respect press freedom and ensure open access to their events. Journalists, whether government-funded or independent, play a crucial role in asking tough questions and holding public figures accountable. Mark Carney's campaign must address its disturbing efforts to silence critical media voices. Signed, Sheila Gunn-Reid, President of the Independent Press Gallery of Canada.
That was actually like straight to the point. Like we didn't see that much condemnation for what independent journalists pass through under the Liberals. And I think to have you shedding light and telling the public about what is going on, I think it's really crucial.
Yeah, I want to make sure that every time something happens to an independent journalist, one of ours, or just an independent journalist out there, Western Standard, Juno News, people who are completely independent, just a one-man shop, I want them to know, first of all, I want the politicians to know that the Independent Press Gallery is watching. And so when you're watching, we're going to name you and shame you, and maybe even take it to the next level. Because the new media is the media in this country. It's what people are watching. It's why Justin Trudeau is trying to control our access to the internet and the things we can stream, see, and say online. He knows the new media is taking over, and it all started with the introduction of these things to our pockets. The old media, they're not adjusting well. And the political parties, neither are they. But at the very least, we're going to do our best to make sure that everybody behaves themselves. I think that's it.
That's perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That was powerful. I was able to feel it.
Yeah, it was true. I mean, we're all out there just trying to do our jobs. And I think we, as independent journalists, we're closer connected to our audience than the mainstream media who sit in a cubicle somewhere and they don't like to mess around with the normals. They don't like to cross paths with the public. But I think that by and large, we ask questions that the public wants answers to, not, the NGO or the environmentalist organization, what they want answers to. Like if you saw Angelica's questions that she shouted to Mark Carney because she was not allowed inside the event, they're questions that you guys want answers to. She asked about his relationship, if any, with convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. I think people want to know that. She asked about, why did you move the head office to Brookfield? Why did you lie about the timeline of moving the head office of Brookfield to the United States while yammering on about protecting Canadian jobs? those are questions that people want answers to. But the politicians don't want to answer them. We will continue to fight for the rights of journalists to ask those in a free, liberal, Western democracy. This isn't North Korea.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that we shout the question, obviously they will not answer to us, but this is giving you the proof why they deny entrance to independent journalists, because those questions, they don't want them in a press conference where they are live in TV.
Yes. And also it shows you the necessity of the independent media, because the journalists with access would never ask those questions. Why? Because they don't want to be on the outside with us. So to protect their access, they ask stupid questions like, why did you call the border czar a czar and not a border secretary? Like, they ask stupid, literally, that's a question they ask. They ask stupid questions like that, or what sort of shampoo do you use, instead of asking the stuff that matters. So it is what it is. As long as they keep doing a bad job, we'll have job security forever. That's the silver lining in that story there. Olivia Efron, are we all caught up? Okay, perfect. We can wrap up. Viewers, if you have not quite yet had enough Rebel News live stream, why don't you head on over to Rebel News Canada's YouTube page, where we are currently streaming the National Citizens Inquiry from Edmonton. You can watch it there. Comment along on the live stream there with, about 1,000 other like-minded people, I think, who are currently watching. And I'm going to close my laptop, put it in my little bag, and I'm going to head into Edmonton to cover the NCI in person. Alexa, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Thanks so much, by the way, for all the hard work that you do for Rebel News on behalf of our viewers and supporters. You put yourself in harm's way more than I would like. But I know that you do it with a real heart for the people that you're speaking on behalf of.
And thank you, because people don't know, but Sheila is always working. Always.
It's true. It is true. It is true. But as Ezra says, as one of our supporters told Ezra, what we do is less of a job and more of a ministry. I feel that way, truly. Olivia Efron, thanks so much for all the work you do behind the board there, and everybody else at Rebel News who make sure that the show is there for you to watch whenever you want to watch it. Thanks to everybody who pitches in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. I'm going to ask you guys a favor. If you could just share this link of the stream to somebody you think needs to find Rebel News or needs to see what we talked about today, I would so appreciate that, because as you know, we're in a time of intense censorship. So if you would help us get around that by sharing it directly, that would be the one wonderful thing that you could do for me today.
And subscribe and like and
comment.
Just give a comment.
Yeah, comment. It helps us in the algorithm in ways that none of us quite understand. The algorithm is a mystery. Well, everybody, again, thanks so much. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.
On a personal level, I've made sure that every single day in this office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future. Because in the past few weeks, we've been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on this system, not just for years to come, but will allow this system to lock in, to become something that no government, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, could ever go back on. On a personal level,